When I was close to 13 years of age, my mom married an American and we migrated to the USA. He adopted us, the three youngest children, and it took a little over a year. And after that, about a year and a half, we moved from Mexico to El Paso. I left family, friends, my house, my street, my food, my groceries, my language, my family. I left everything behind. I remember so vividly going to the grocery store and just being so frustrated because neither my mom or my brother or myself spoke English. So we're trying to read the containers of the food, and we were hoping so hard that most containers were transparent, so at least we could see what's in there to buy our groceries. But no, most containers are not transparent. So we would try to read and try to figure out what was in there. But many times we would just take groceries home that we had no clue what was in there. And that's how we were introduced to cottage cheese, which we had never seen in Mexico before. We were introduced to nacho cheese, yellow cheese, and which we don't use in Mexico unless it's imported from the US. We moved from a home, a small home, into a teeny little studio here in the US. We couldn't afford better. People in this country don't imagine how much better life is here, at least financially and educational opportunities. My mom would do it again. She would bring us again because there's so many more opportunities here. As a little girl, no, I did not want to come. I did not understand what my mom was talking about. Why would I want to leave my country? I was fine. I was not starving, you know, we were humble, but we had what we needed.
So DACA is a program that was created by President Obama called the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals Program. And what DACA is it's a constitutional use of prosecutorial discretion. So the way that people can best understand what prosecutorial discretion is that it's the law enforcement officer's power to decide when to enforce a law. So if you've ever been pulled over by a police officer and you were hoping for the best, that he give you a warning as opposed to a ticket, then you are relying on his power to decide, his prosecutorial discretion, to not give you a ticket and to instead give you an opportunity to avoid having to be a part of the criminal justice or the traffic process. Similarly, the President of the United States is the chief law enforcement officer for the United States. And so in that capacity, he was able to explain that his power to decide which cases are a priority for prosecution and which ones aren't for immigration purposes falls squarely within his constitutional authority within the executive branch to decide where the limited use of resources should be directed. And he created a program where people could affirmatively request protection from deportation after they had been thoroughly vetted by his administration. And that's what DACA is. So it gave them 2-year protection from deportation and also work authorization after they'd been vetted through the Executive Departments of Homeland Security's office. It requires Congress to pass a law that allows certain people under whatever circumstances they define to have a pathway to residency and then subsequently citizenship. There is no way to become a resident if you were granted protection from deportation through DACA. And what advocates are asking for at this time is that because we know the program works, because we know that the vetting process was very successful and that people were willing to disclose their information and that they were willing to pay for that benefit, that it should be a policy that Congress can turn into a legal means for giving people some kind of legal status in the United States. And if they so choose to make it a pathway to residency, but no law such as that exists at this time that's ever been passed.
Well, I asked my parents what hospital I was born in because I was just curious. And they told me you were born in Ciudad Juarez. At the time, I didn't really understand what a legal status meant, but I just knew I was born in another country. That's all I knew. And I knew I was different. You know, I knew that I was different because I didn't have papeles or papers. I knew I was different, I just didn't feel different. when I was 18 that I couldn't able to get any scholarships or a driver's license. I knew that that was going to come from an early age, but it wasn't up until I was 18 that it like directly impacted me. I was enrolled at the Paso Community College. I mean, I was just really going through the motions because DACA, we didn't have DACA yet. So I was just like, well, I'm kind of going to college because I grew up here, so it's something that's reiterated to you the whole time, like you're gonna go to college. I was just doing that, and I mean, knowing that if when I graduate, I'm not gonna be able to get a job. So I just kind of went through it up until like DACA was announced. That's when I kind of started to become a better student and do better in life.
So when I was 8 years old, I was living in Caracas in Venezuela. My two oldest brothers were both living in El Paso. One was, I believe, attending school. The other one was attending a technical school to become a truck driver. I lived in Venezuela with my mom and my little sister. Unfortunately, my little sister passed away because of an infection in her lungs, which could have been treated better if we were in the United States. After that, my mom became very depressed and decided that she wanted to be with all of her kids in one place versus having to migrate back and forth. My mom, we came here by a plane on a tourist visa, and shortly after coming to the United States, my mom petitioned for her U.S. green card through my oldest brother, Sebastian, who is a citizen now. Right before she was eligible to become a U.S. citizen, she actually became very ill. And so we decided, because of lack of access to health insurance, that the best option for her was to move back to her home country, Venezuela, where she would be attended by other family members. Unfortunately, it would mean that I was no longer available to apply through her. I did apply in one occasion in 2011 for a green card and showed up to the USCIS officer and was denied. Then I received a letter in the mail about 30 days after saying that I had only a month to leave the country. This was in the eve of my high school graduation. And so it didn't matter how many college acceptance letters I had with me at that interview. It didn't matter that I had over $100,000 in scholarships from different universities across the country. What mattered at that point was the fact that that dream was no longer attainable. And so I had to fight my right to stay in this country. I had to fight in the courts specifically. And luckily in 2012, President Obama came out with or released the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, which allowed me to continue my education here in the United States and provided me with protection from deportation.